say your name and how old you are.
Well, my real name should be Manuel, but they like Stephen, so my name is Manuel Stephen Montano. So I like Manuel when I grew up, but they started calling me Stephen, so I run by Stephen.
Where were you born?
I was born in Antonchico, New Mexico. I was born February 25th, 1907. And when I was 2 years old, or 3 years old, I remember my dad moved from Antonchico to Tucumcari, New Mexico. There, he worked in the railroad there in Southern Pacific for a while. And then I guess he didn't like the job or something, so he quit. So he went back to Antonchico. So we stayed with my grandma there. My grandma had fruit trees and vineyards, and she had a nice place there. So we stayed there with my grandma for a while, till 1912. I used to go with my dad in covered wagon, and I don't know why he takes me, because just for company, I guess. I was just then about 4 years old, and we went to Las Vegas, New Mexico, Rociada, and all those places to sell the fruit that my grandma had. Then finally we came to Antonchico, and my dad decided to go to Springer, so we moved to Springer, New Mexico, and we were there a while, and then my grandma decided to move with us to Springer, because she didn't have nobody there. Of course, my mom and my dad left my sister Juanita with them, because she didn't have nobody to take care of her. She was an old lady already. And they moved over there. They bought a house in Springer, close to us. So we stayed there then we moved to Maxwell, 1922. We lived a year there in Maxwell, New Mexico, and then back to Springer. In 1923, we went to Colorado, to Loveland, and we worked in the farms out there. And then in 1923, and then we came back to New Mexico. And in 1925, Dad and I went to Texas, Lubbock, Texas, to work over there. So we worked a while there, about a couple of months, and we came back to Springer. And then my brother-in-law used to work in a mine there in Morley, Colorado. And I didn't have no job, and he says, "Would you like to work in a mine?" And he says, "I got 3 places there." And he says, "We can both work in the 3 places, coal mine, you know." So I said, "Yeah, I don't have no job." So my dad and my mom didn't want for me to work in the mine. They said it was pretty dangerous. So I did. I stayed about 3 months there, but we wasn't making any money, because of the places they gave us there in the camp wasn't too good. The coal wasn't too good. So we they used to pay $1 a car, you know, $1 a ton. So we used to fill in probably about 10 tons a day, and that wasn't enough money to pay rent and all that. So we finally quit. So then we moved back to Maxwell, and my dad started building houses there, adobe brick houses. He built a drugstore there, a big drugstore, and I helped him. But I'll go back. When we went to Springer, I was only 5 years old. That was on 1912, and that was when the New Mexico became a state, because it was a territory then. And I remember just me and my sister. My sister was 2 years older than I, and so we went on covered wagon. It took us 3 days to get to Springer. So finally, we were going to Colorado, and then one of my uncles says, "Why don't you stay here? There's a lot of work here in New Mexico." So he said, "Yeah, I think I'll stay a while." So we stayed there. And we went to Colorado, and we went to Rocky Ford. No, we went to Loveland, like I said, and then back to Rocky Ford in 1923. 1923 we came from Springer, and then we went in 1924, was in 1924, to Rocky Ford again, and then 1925, 1925 we, what else? I was working in building houses again for the farmers there with my dad, you know. I used to work with my dad. I didn't go to school much because we had to support my family, and times are pretty hard. So anyway, my dad used to tell me, you learn how to work, he says, and you won't starve. So I took his word for it. I didn't like school anyhow, so I didn't go to school anymore. Wish I should have, but I didn't know any better, and I was young. So we had a lot of fun when we were small there in Rocky Ford. And then, like me and my sister, she was the oldest, and we used to wrestle in bed and wrestle just like, you know, all the time, and have a lot of fun. And finally we got married, like she said, in 1929, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so in 1929, I worked on the railroad a while, and then we moved with my father-in-law and my mother-in-law for a while, and they worked there. And then finally we went on vacation to Terreros, New Mexico, and one of her uncle and aunt, he says, would you like to work in the metal mines? I said, yes, I don't have a steady job. I said, I work out in the farm. So she knew one of the bosses that were there in the mine, and she wrote a small slip of paper and told him who I was, and because she had helped this boss, she had helped his mother when she needed it, and he really appreciated that. So they knew him. So I went, and there was about 300 guys there looking for a job in Terrell in the mines. It was hard times, you know, just after the Depression. And I went there with the guys, 300 guys there, and they didn't call anybody. So after everybody went, I went with my slip of paper, and that boss was pretty mean. He says, what do you want? When I went with my slip of paper, I said, well, I got this paper here. I says, well, he says, did you see I didn't hire anybody? Yes, sir. I says, I know, but I have this slip of paper. And so he read it. So when he read it, he says, all right, he says, go to the doctor and get checked up. So I got the job. I went to the doctor and I passed the examination and everything. Next day I went to work in the mine, which I never did work in the metal mines. I used to work in a coal mine. So from there on, I worked a couple of years there.
We have to stop here because there's too much sound. I'm gonna pause it here so I can hear the water going there. Go ahead. You were talking about the metal mines.
Oh yes, I worked there a couple of years till they closed the mine because they dug all the metal out. They filled in the mine with water, the water in the mine. So then we went to Pueblo in 1928.
39.
28 or 29?
No, you started working 36.
Yes.
And they closed it on 39, so you worked 3 years.
So we went back to Pueblo, and then I worked there in the farms for about a couple months, I guess. Well, the depression was on yet, and
there's water.
That darn plane keeps on going by.
Okay. So then you moved again after that.
Then to move there, they didn't give us much of a chance when they were going to close the mine. they sent us a letter about a week before or 2 weeks before. Nobody knew they was going to close the mine.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a bad business because nobody knew. And I had bought a log house there, and we paid $200 for it, on the camp. Well, the land wasn't mine, just the house.
The cabin.
The cabin was a cabin made out of logs,
Oh, really?
So there was a man there that used to buy these logs, and then he used to buy them, and he says, if lend money,
Mm-hmm.
and says whenever you leave or something like that, I'll take, if you can't pay the money, I'll take the house. So I had bought a car in 1926 Chevrolet, and I needed some tires, and his name he was a Mexican from old Mexico. He was working in the mine too, and he had money in the bank, but he says whenever you need money, he got pretty friendly with me, and if you need money, he says, I can lend you some money, whatever you need. He was a nice guy in a way. So I said, no, I don't need any. So time went on, and finally, I guess it was about 3 months that lasted, and then they told us they were going to close the mine, and the guy loaned me $200, which I had paid for the house. But I haven't paid him. So when they closed the mine, I says, the house is yours, I says, and he didn't know they were going to close the mine, so I don't know what he did with the house. Maybe he just left it there. But he lost money on that because I didn't know either. And I didn't have no money to pay the money I had to move out of there. A lot of people lost their cars and lost furniture and everything, because they were paying on payments, whatever they bought. I didn't lose anything because I didn't buy anything on payments.
This was during the Depression?
Yeah, right after Depression. So we moved to Pueblo. We went to Van Houten from there. I bought a trailer and put the little things we had and took off from the camp, and we went to Van Houten where I used to work before with my brother. I had a cousin there, and we stayed there a night, I guess, or something like that. And then from there on, we went to Pueblo. And then I worked in the fields for about 2 months, I guess, or a month. And then there was a man there that, by the name Paul Garcia. And he got pretty friendly with us, and he used to be the president of the Mount Carmel Society there in the church. He was pretty religious. And he says, would you like to join the Mount Carmel Society? I said, yeah, I think it'd be all right. She told me all about it and all that. And then after a while, he says, would you like to work in the steel mill? And I was working on it. Well, sure. I says, that would be a steady job for me. So he says, I'll put your name down, he says, and then whenever they can hire somebody at the galvanized department, he says, I'll give you a call. Or the company will call you. So sure enough, I was working out in the field with another friend of mine, and one day my brother-in-law Pete here, he went over in his car and he says, Steve, he said, they call you from a steel mill. He says, they want you to go and have examines of you. And I figured, sure. So I came right away and went next day to the doctor, and I passed on. I passed there, the examination, and I went to work next day, and I worked there 7 years, when 1940 unto 47, was it? Until 47. And in 47 we came here on vacation, and your grandma...
You came to California?
Yes. And your grandma felt pretty good here. She says, why don't we stay here? She said, something like that. I feel pretty good here. And I said, well, if it's for your health. But I had my steady job over there. I could have retired over there. And so we stayed here, and I didn't go back. I sent him the company that I wasn't going to go back. So I started working in the shipyard here and there, and it was pretty hard. That move was hard because I didn't have a steady job. I worked in the canneries, where I could find. So finally I met a friend. He says, would you like to work on the railroad? He says, well, I like to work on the railroad, which they were not paying much. They were paying $1 an hour or something like that. But it was steady. And so one day he says, he told me, he said, they're hiring for painters, he says. So if you want to work, he says, I'll come on over, he says, and they'll probably hire you. So I went over there and they hired me right away. I went for examination and everything, and check-up and everything, so I passed the examination. I started working for the railroad in 1975. Then, 1975 we went to Europe?
70.
Huh?
70, 1970.
On the 70s, yeah.
That's after Judy and Freddie got married, we went.
Yeah.
1970.
When I come back, well, I retired, I was 69 years old. So I retired, and from there on I painted a few houses out, and then I figured, well, I better not. I didn't like to work anymore. I mean, so I didn't work anymore. I just took it easy, and that was it. I'm still here, and
You retired
every birthday, huh?
You retired on 77.
Yeah. Well, I really don't remember. So every birthday that I have, I've been having a great time. One time, when I was 50 years old, we had a great time. They gave me a birthday, and that was really a surprise for me. I came from work, and a whole crowd of people were in here. When I opened the door, they all started singing "Happy Birthday." And we dance here. We used to have some parties here in this house. Till finally people started getting out of line, so we didn't have parties anymore. They started drinking, and some people couldn't hold their drinks, and so we didn't have parties anymore. We just quit. So
well, let me change the camera view here. Now look towards right here, Grandpa. There you go. Now make sure when you talk, look right at me. That way we have the nice side of your face there. It looks good. So you tell. What's that?
No, I was going to tell him you didn't even notice all the cars around that time.
All the cars?
Yeah, there's so many people. It was full of people in here.
Oh, really?
And you should see, I have pictures where he's really surprised.
Huh? Yeah. What you said at the parties, people got out of hand. They were just starting fights, or?
Well, yeah, in a way, they didn't.
Not here.
They didn't hurt each other, but then they start having difference in words, in
right.
the land. But we didn't have no. I mean, no real fights.
Mm-hmm.
But we figured before anything start any farther, they might get into trouble and get hurt. So we figured we might as well don't have them anymore. So we quit. We didn't have parties anymore.
Tell me a little bit about your mother and your father when you and your immediate family when you were growing up.
Well, all of my side of my mother, I only knew my grandmother and her second husband. I didn't know my first grandfather. And on the side of my dad, I didn't know him. My sister did, and she was 2 years older than I, like I say, but I didn't know him. And then I knew the second grandfather that married my grandmother. My grandmother married 3 times, and my ancestors from my dad, I didn't know them, except my cousins. There were a lot of montaños there in Antonchico. There was just a area there. They were all montaños, and there were probably about 35 or 40 montaños there with families, Mm-hmm. And Antonchico was a grant. The government gave them land there, and they used to live out of the land. They still do, Of course, they go to Las Vegas to work, some of them. but before there wasn't transportation, they used to just farm and live out of what they farm, you know, what they...
They planted.
Yeah. And now in Anton Chico, there's only one cousin that I know. He's my second cousin, I think second or third cousin. We were over there last year, and he didn't know. I didn't know there was any montaños there. I thought there wasn't any. But then we inquired there if there's any montaños. He said there's only one, and he said his name is Alfonso Montaño. So we went to his house, and he just looked and says, I says, you don't remember me, you don't know me as I don't know you. He says, but I'm a Montaño. And, he says, what's your name, you know, and this and that. I says, my name is Steve Montaño. He never heard it, you know, of course. And he says, mine is Alfonso Montaño, and he was a son of my cousin, my second cousin. He was my third cousin. So he took us in the house and gave us watermelon and everything. He was so nice from there on, you know. And he played the harmonica. He sure could play the harmonica. And but I didn't know. He sang the song of Anton Chico, because there's a song composed from that little village, you know. And so I knew that he was there, and he said he was going to send us some piña nuts, but he hasn't yet. I don't know, maybe later on. So he's the only one living there. But he has two daughters in Las Vegas, 2 daughters and a boy in Las Vegas. I didn't get to see them though. One of the girls, or the 2 girls, I guess they run one of these beauty shops. But every time I go out, I don't know, I forget to inquire about them, see where they have their place. And what else? So we came here, and then we wrote to him, but he hasn't answered, huh? To
Yeah.
Alfonso.
Oh, he will one of the day. He takes his time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. That look like you're looking towards me again? There we go. It's hard sometimes to focus. There we go. There we go. Okay. So what was it like growing up when you were young? What were the times like, and what was it like with your family?
With the family, it was pretty nice. Well, my dad was the only one working, but we used to have a lot of fun. We used to, those days we used to spin the top, or play marbles, and with the kids, you know, from school or the neighbors around there. We used to play Rancho at night sometimes, you know, and there was no television, we didn't have my dad had an old organ there that I used to pound on it, but I didn't know how to play. I don't know what they did with it, but it was an old one. But that's the fun we had there in Springer. At one time, this guy went with about 20 donkeys, and he was selling a donkey, $5 a donkey. So my dad bought one, and the neighbors bought donkeys. So this neighbor of mine, they had a boy, so they sent him for flour one time downtown, you know, which was about half a mile from it. We had to cross the tracks and all that. And he had a black donkey. And he says, Steve, why don't you go with me? So we both got on the donkey and went downtown to get some flour, small sacks of flour like that. So we go up the hill, and then when we was coming down, the flour went down, and down he went, and me too, you know. And he had flour all over his face. Boy, we had a laugh. But boy, when he got home, I don't know if he got a beating or not, but he never did told me. Oh, I'm telling you. And my donkey was kind of like the one your dad had. I didn't keep him very long. I just rode it just about 3-4 times, and then we got rid of it. But my dad bought it for me. And we didn't need it. My dad always had a team of horses, you know. We was always working. He didn't have no saddle horses. He was always working with the team. But we had a lot of fun with those donkeys and the neighbors around there.
What about your brothers or sisters? Could you tell me something about them?
Well, my sister, like I said, she was always having fun or going to church, and most of the time going to church.
What was her name?
And and the church, we used to walk to church. And then in the winter when it was snow, we used to make a path, you know, to church, pray and all that.
What was her name?
Her name is Aggie.
Aggie.
Yeah. And my other brother, which was Eddie, and I was quite older than him. And one time, my dad built a adobe house there in Springer, and he had an attic, and then he had a ladder, you know, on to go up. He didn't have no steps like they do now. So I don't know what, we had an iron up there, or I don't know what kind of something. So my brother Eddie went up there, and I was coming down the ladder, and we was playing up there. And I decided to go down, and he was going to come down too. And he got this piece of iron, I don't know what it was, it belonged to a car or somewhere, and he threw it down and hit me on the head. Boy, I was bleeding to eat the man, he hit me right on the head. And I went down, and my mom cured me, you know, got eyes or something and put him in there and put a patch in there. But he was small. When my dad came, I was all patched up. He said, "What happened to you?" And I told him what had happened. He says, "You guys better not go up the attic anymore." So he took the ladder away from there, you know, so he couldn't go up.
And tell him when he
Huh?
Tell him when he shot the bullet on the trunk.
When what?
When Serafín shot the trunk. El bable, cuando le dio el balazo al bable.
Oh, yeah, my dad used to have a gun, one of these 30-30s. Mm-hmm. And my dad always had a gun. He had a revolver, or he had a gun. I don't know, he never did use them, but he liked to have a gun. Mm-hmm. And one time, my brother Eddie, he was too much. He was more than I guess. And he was always fooling around. So my dad had that rifle in a corner. My dad was working, just the family was in the house. Mm-hmm. And we were in the kitchen, and my brother Eddie came in the room, and he got the gun and started marching around, you know, like a soldier. Mm-hmm. We didn't know what he was doing. All of a sudden, we heard a pop, like a firecracker. What the heck happened? So we went over there, and he was so scared, you know. And I said, "What the heck happened?" And he had shot, you know, he had the gun loaded. I don't know why. And my mother had one of these trunks, you know, where they used to keep the clothes. And he shot that trunk, and it went through the trunk twice, and it hit the wall. It made a big hole on it. And boy, it's a good thing he didn't get hurt, you know. When my dad came, he didn't punish him. He said, "Don't you ever get that gun." But I guess my dad emptied the gun from me. He never did have it loaded anymore.
So all the clothes in the trunk had holes in them.
Yeah. And I remember that trunk, that era's metal trunk, and he hit them. So it didn't hurt it much. It's just the hole it made in there, you know, and still had the clothes there. But and then he had this revolver, and one time, I don't know why this guy, I was a small kid, and we used to sleep in the front room, and some guy was peeping through the window, and the moon was real bright, you know, and my dad and mom was sleeping already, and I was awake, and I saw this guy going through the window and going like that, and I peeked over there to my dad, you know, I was in bed next room. I says, "Dad," I said, "there's somebody out there." peeping in the window. So he got the gun, my dad got the gun, the revolver, I think it was a 40 or something, a 44. As soon as he heard him, he took off. And there was an orchard there in Springer, he took out through the orchard, and my dad popped a couple of them, you know. And a lot of neighbors got out and said, what happened? I said, somebody was peeping on my window, you know. He didn't even know who was. We never did find out. And that was the only one who used that revolver. But he never did kill anybody or anything like that. But he always did had a gun.
But what did the family do for a living at that time? Did it vary or?
In Springer, my dad used to build houses there, adobe brick houses. He was the only one working. He had me working with him after I grew up. I just went up to the 6th grade. I didn't have much school because he took me out to help him support the family. And that's how we made our living there. So when we went to Colorado, the farms, we always working out in the farms. And all the money go to the house. We had to save the money to go through the winter because in the winter there was no jobs at all. Yeah.
It sounds pretty tough, that line of work.
Well, yeah, in a way it was, and in a way it wasn't. He always did have a job, and the groceries were pretty reasonable. And of course we didn't have like suits and hose. We only had one pair of shoes, and we better take care of that pair of shoes, you know. And that pair of shoes, you know, the sole would be wearing out, and he'd take these tires and make a sole out of the tires, you know, the car tires, and sole them. It lasted a long time. He put tacks in, and he had one of these, what do they call them, the hormas? Cobbles?
Yeah.
One of those couples, you know, and he used to sew our shoes and everything. He used to cut our hair and everything. We never did go to the barber. So he, all of that he saved. And then one time he bought a cow, and boy, a Jersey cow. And that cow was really good. He used to get half a bucket of milk, you know, every evening. And that cream was about that thick in the morning, just like butter. I remember I used to love that with syrup. It was good. And then one time he had a sow and a pig. Sow had 12 little ones. And they used to fight, you know, trying to feed themselves, you know, and they roll off the pig, you know. I used to have so much fun with it. Good look at them. My grandma had some chickens.
You can go ahead and keep talking.
My grandma had some chickens, and one time I went after some eggs with chicken coop, and there was this big old cat, you know, and I saw this big old cat in the chicken coop, and I went and got a stick. I thought I was going to get the cat, but then that cat was about to jump on me, you know, and I saw his eyes, big eyes, and I took off. I never did hit him, so I left him alone. I never did go in the chicken coop anymore. And my grandma said, "Didn't you get the eggs?" "No, there's a big cat there." So she went over there, and the cat had gone by itself.
When did you see your first car, the first automobile?
Well, my dad bought a small truck one time, and it was a Model T, but he only had one seat, you know, and it was flat, small one. But
What year? What year was that?
That must have been about 1915 or 16, I guess. Real funny, you know. So my brother-in-law was the only one that knew how to drive it, and he taught me how to drive. I was only about 12 years old, I guess, 13. And we used to go out to a prairie, and we used to go out about 2 or 3 miles, and we had to put water in it because the radiator was no good, you know. And we didn't have no money to fix a radiator. So we rode that thing and had fun with it. It was mostly like a toy to us, you know. My dad didn't drive it. He didn't know how. Then my brother-in-law said, "I'll drive it." drive it. You go to see video, you know. So we had a lot of fun. He finally got rid of it. Yeah.
Didn't he? What did he? Didn't he trade it for the sow?
Huh?
Didn't he trade it for the pig?
How much did he pay?
I mean, when he got rid of the truck.
When he got rid of it? Oh, he must have kept it about 4 months, I guess, or something like that.
Didn't he trade it though for a pig?
Yeah, for a pig, and then these sows, you know, he was gonna have little ones, and he had 12 of them. Well, my dad was always trading horses, guns, anything. He was a trader. Sometimes he get good horses, sometimes he get some bad ones. That's the way he was. He was always trading or buying and trading, and yeah.
What? When did you? How did you first meet Grandma?
When we first meet?
But put it in the put that in your answer. Say I met Mary, and then go on with your story.
Well, I met Mary in 1927. Right. 1927.
About right.
And then we started going around, and finally I went to, that's when I went to Morley, I guess, one winter. There was no jobs. Oh no, I went to Phoenix. I came to Phoenix. And I didn't see her anymore for about a year or so. But I went back, and then finally got together again. I mean, going around, we finally got married. So we went 3 years together, I guess. I mean, and from on, we just got married and live ever after, like I say, you know.
What was the wedding like?
Oh, the wedding was pretty good. Didn't take no pictures then or nothing like that. There was no cameras around much or anything. We didn't. We just did the pictures we got there, and that's all.
Yeah, just a meal, a dinner, the family, the two family, that's all.
We had a big dinner. We had a big, yeah, the family, you know, just a family. It wasn't a big wedding.
And what were the times like when you first got married? Was it hard to start out? Was it
pretty hard? But she was working. She was working steady. I wasn't working steady. But I was working the railroad, like I say, and then I quit. And then I was out of a job for a while, but she was working. And until the depression come in, then I started working again.
Now you were married and then you had children. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the children that came after that and what they were like?
Well, like she says, when she had Rudy, we stayed with him a while, and then I was working with my father-in-law in the farm, and then we got separated. I went to work by myself in a ranch, and Rudy stayed with him till he was 5 years old. And then we had Henry. Well, we took Henry, and they loved Rudy because they used to do everything for him. They were spoiling him, you know. So good thing one time, I guess, like she said, Pete and him, what he said, Pete didn't serve him jelly or something.
That's something, I don't know.
Anyway, he didn't like what Pete told him, you know. He says, I'm going to go back to Mama or with Henry. He said, well, go on, pack your clothes and go on. He did. Pete didn't think he was going to do it. So he did. He went, and he never didn't want to stay anymore with him. And my father-in-law and my mother-in-law really missed him. They really did miss him. Because they liked him so well. They loved him, you know.
Oh, they brought him up for 5 years.
Well, they brought him up, yeah. Because she was always working, and I was always working, and she was taking care of him. But it's a good thing that they went with us, because they would have been spoiled, you know. They used to do everything for him. He didn't even know how to tie his shoes. He was 5 years old already, and I taught him how to tie his shoes, and he didn't want to, and Rudy was a kind of that he wouldn't cry. You tell him something, but he'd stay mad. He wouldn't say nothing. He'd stay real quiet. And Henry was different. Henry, you scold him or something like that, and after a while, he was the same. He'd come to you, but Rudy wasn't different. Rudy would get mad and stay for a while, And if you holler at Rudy, he didn't like that. He was very, how would I say?
He would get hurt.
You get hurt.
Stay quiet.
He didn't like. And Henry was different. Henry didn't. You holler at Henry, and he was all right.
And then, so Rudy was born when?
He was born in the 30s, wasn't he? 1930? Or 1930?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Henry in 31.
30, yeah, Henry in 31.
And then came Rosemary.
In 37.
And 37, yeah. And seven years after.
And your dad in 44.
Yeah. And then Rosemary.
Oh, Rosemary in 37.
Yeah. And that was it. No more children. That was the size of it.
What was Rosemary like when she was young?
Well, she used to like to dance and sing. When we were in Pueblo, she was taking tap dancing. She was coming out pretty good. But then we moved over here. She was really a good tap dancer. She was just about 10 years old or something like that. Or 9 years old. When she was tap dancing in Pueblo, remember?
Yeah. She was 9 years old when we moved.
Yeah.
That's good. She was, what, 10 years old when you moved out here? 9 years old?
You're 9 years old.
Yeah, 9 years old.
And then we moved.
Your dad was 2 years old.
How old was she when we moved here? She must have been.
You mean to this house?
No, when we came from California.
Oh, we came on 46 and she was born on 37. So she was 9 years old.
9 years old, yeah. Freddie was 2 years old when we moved. Yeah. And then she went to school here. And she finally met this fellow in parties, and by the name Rudy Pegueros. He was a nice boy. And then one time they went to a party, I guess over in Florence somewhere.
Yeah, where Pete's.
And then they had to go after films or something like that. They had nobody to go, and then Arthur happened to be there, and the other boy happened to be there. So Rosemary and Arthur went, and all of a sudden, I guess they got acquainted, and she just started going with Arthur. Left the other boy. Finally got married.
And then, of course,
she's been a good son-in-law. Very good.
A good husband. He's been good to Rosemary.
Huh?
And good husband, I say. He's been good to Rosemary.
Yeah, he's a very nice man. And they lived here quite a while. When they got married, they used to live downstairs. And he helped me a lot with the house. He put the gutters on. He painted one time when he didn't have the siding on and all that. And then we used to have this other apartment in West Oakland, and we used to help me over there with it too. Well, it was rented, and you finally the city took it. They took all those houses on West Oakland, and they took our house too. I was sure glad that they did, because there was a lot of trouble with people,
You're not going to tell her about our baby?
And And let's see, where to start that now. Freddie went to school. What was that name of that school when we lived in Coral Road? That's where he started going?
Well, he was born in 44
Well, yeah, he was born in 44, Freddie.
in Pueblo.
And in Pueblo. And when he came here, he was only 2 years old. And he started school when he was 5.
We lived in Coral Road.
And we lived in Coral Road, west of here, about that was making the freeway then, that Nimitz Freeway. And he used to start school over there. He used to have a saxophone, and he started playing the saxophone. He wanted that. He wanted music, so we bought him a sax. And he had a little box with him and put the saxophone in, and he used to walk me to school. When he'd get tired, he'd sit on the little box and rest a while, and then he'd go to school.
He was so short and small.
So he took saxophone pretty good, and he learned it, and then he came to high school, and he was still playing the sax. He got to be the leader of the band here, and he was well, it's too bad we didn't take any more pictures of him. We took a few pictures there, but he was pretty good. From there on, he been playing the sax. Then they had a group here that used to play in dances and clubs and stuff like that. And finally, the group broke. One of the boys, the drummer, and the drummer passed on, and when Rudy, no, Freddie, Joe lived in Santa Clara somewhere.
Sunnyvale.
Or Sunnyvale, and he lived here, and it finally broke, but they used to be a pretty good orchestra. Used to play for dances, big dances. Used to play in the boat, going to San Francisco once in a while.
The ferry, was that
on
was
the
fun.
ferry, yeah. We went one time in the ferry when they played, and they used to dance there on the ferry. And he had a lot of fun playing, I guess, and he used to love to play and dance, of course. I guess at heart he's a real montano, because all of montanos, all of my relation, the ones that didn't play used to sing. All of them, they used to be very, very happy relation, very happy family. From my uncles up to my cousins, everybody. I used to have an uncle that used to be a very good dancer. He used to dance waltzes and polkas, and he was very good.
Well, everyone plays an instrument, don't they?
Yeah.
Yes,
or sings.
just about, yeah.
Yeah,
so
montaños are.
there was a man here by the name Flores, Alejandro Flores, Alex Flores, and I gave him music. I used to pay him $1 a week. Every week I used to go and to his teacher, to
Teacher
Mr.
Rudy
Flores.
and Henry.
And Flores was a professor. He learned his music in the Conservatory of Mexico, and his basic music was violin, but he used to know guitar and everything. So he taught him music. He taught Rudy the guitar and Henry the violin. Oh, you should have seen
Should have heard
Henry play the violin. Used to play it so pretty.
It sounded like two violins playing.
Yeah. But he went to the service. When he went to the service, and he left the violin and he got playing the guitar. But he used to play the violin. He used to make it sound real nice.
Mm-hmm.
What did Uncle Henry do in the service?
Who?
Uncle Henry?
He was in medics.
He was Uncle Henry was a medic. A medic?
Yeah, he made.
Oh,
They
yes.
gave him a quiz test, and he made it for the medic. He wanted to go overseas, but they didn't take him.
He was the right man, the doctor's right man. And well, he didn't. I didn't know he was going to go to the service, but he was only 16 years old, and he went He volunteered. I had to sign for him to go. I didn't want to sign, but he wanted to go so bad. So they like she said, they were always together, Rudy and Henry, and they used to have some bunk beds, and they sleep in the same room. They have bunk beds. Rudy used to sleep up and Henry down. Once in a while, I guess Rudy will forget that Henry wasn't here and said, "Henry, you know what happened today?" And he wasn't there. He was in the service. He was pretty kind of sad for us.
He took it pretty hard, Rudy, too.
Oh, and then he says, "Oh, you remember that he wasn't there anymore." It's kind of sad. So finally he came back. There for a while, Henry wouldn't go out anywhere. And we was wondering, he stayed playing his guitar. He wouldn't go out to shows or anywhere.
I
Played
pulled
the
the
guitar.
shade down and practiced that guitar all day.
Yeah. So finally, one day we went over to Benicia. There was my brothers there, Roger and Jenny there, and Jean had a place, and she was teaching Hawaiian. She used to be a good Hawaiian dancer. And they introduced Henry to Jean, you know. And she had her mother, she didn't have no father there. So I guess they got acquainted and they started going around and finally got married.
He was supposed to come on vacation and go back to college in Gunnison,
Oh, yes.
but he didn't go back. He got married.
Yeah,
He was going to become a doctor.
the doctor.
He was helping the doctor there and the medics.
Well, he used to say that the doctor, they just sit down and tell him what to do, and he used to do all the operations and stuff like that.
He'd just be there to be seeing what they were doing, so doing the right thing and all that. So they thought he would make it. I guess they sent him to college, but he didn't go.
We have pictures there
Yeah.
when he was with the doctors. I don't know where they are. They're someplace.
Oh, he thought he'd be too old, 37 years, by the time he would get his certificate.
Yeah,
Look how old he is now.
yeah.
So, overall with the family, was there a time when times were tough or rough, and how did you get by? Supporting this family. That seems like a lot of kids to support.
You mean us? You mean
Mhm.
how we did it? Well, like when she wasn't working, I was working. Well, I was working most of the time, but she worked in Pueblo in the stores, and then she worked over here also. And like I say, I got in the shipyard and then on the railroad, and that's the way we got by. And then we bought a house in West Oakland, and then before we sold that house, they bought this one. No, we went to Coral Road and we bought a house in Coral Road. And then from there, we bought this one here, and we're still renting the house over there. So that kind of helped us a little bit, the rent and all that. But it got pretty rough, and then I was just glad that the city took that house because they were destroying it, No more.
How old are you, Grandpa?
How old I am? Well, I am 90 years old. 90 and 4 days.
90 in 4 days. How's it feel to be 90 in 4 days?
Well, I feel the years all right. Like my fingers get pretty stiff. Sometimes my shoulder hurts. My arms, if I turn them the wrong way or something like that, I get a pain on them, and all that. Some days I feel pretty good, some days I don't. But I guess it's It's a 90 years old. That's what can you say, you know? But I still drive. I can drive a car pretty good. A lot of people ask me, "You still driving?" I guess they're surprised. A lot of people at 90 years old, they don't drive. Although I went for my driver's license, I didn't pass it. But I still have another chance or two. I don't know. But the words, I can drive good and everything, but some of the words, they kind of trick me. So I didn't mark the words that I should have. And but I can drive on all the signs. I can read all the signs, the lights and everything. But it's just the test, you know. That's what holds me back. But I've been driving cars since I was 12 years old. Like I say, we had that little truck, you know.
What was it like to get a driver's license back then?
What's that?
What was it like to get a driver's license back then in the early 1900s? Your driver's license?
I don't think you have to take a test, did you? Did we? We didn't have to get a test to get the driver's license. Just when we started driving.
Oh no!
You just pay $3 and get a license.
You didn't have no insurance, no nothing like that. You buy the license for the car. You didn't buy the license to drive. When they didn't ask for insurance, so we didn't have no insurance at all.
How much was a license?
$3.
And we had a heck of a time, saving $3.
$3. We had to save $3 to buy the license. Yeah. Oh man, I'm telling you, how time has changed. Yeah, and I never did. I guess God been good to me. I never have had accidents, and I've been driving right along. But like they say, it's always the first time. I hope not. I drive pretty good, I think. I don't drive fast. Open roads, 60, 65, that's good enough for me, you know.
Has the time gone by quickly or?
Very, very fast. The time really went fast. Yeah.
What do you think when you look back on 90 years of living?
You mean, how do I feel? How do I?
What do you think of the years?
Well, I think it's pretty good yet, because I feel so good. I can sleep good and eat good, and I'm enjoying my life. But I always have something to do. If I'm nothing, I get my violin and read. Get my violin and play, and if I don't want to play, I can read. I like to read books. And of course, a lot of words I don't understand them very well, but most of them I do. I like to read. And that's like that's my life.
He can
I
cheat on cards.
I go out for walks, you know. Huh?
You can still cheat on cards. You're 90 years old.
I like to play cards. I didn't know how to play cards when we got married, but she taught me how to play cards. And I didn't even like the cards. That's on account of my dad. She wouldn't allow no cards in the house. He said, "No gamblers here." My dad was kind of strict. He says, "And I don't want you to go to a pool with your cousin and your other friend," that was Paul Zamora, "because those are bad guys." He said. They were not bad guys, but he thought they were, you know. And he says, those guys that go to the pool hall or play cards, he says, they get to be gamblers, and then they start
They drink and
stealing or something like that. He wouldn't let me go downtown. I was afraid of my dad. And if I see my dad downtown, and I go with my friend or Paul, I see him over there, I hide. I wouldn't let him see me. If I see me with my friend out there, he says, "What were you doing out there? You got nothing to do?" I had to shop one of these railroad ties every evening to keep the house warm at night, because we have one of these pot stoves, you know, in the room. And I had to keep one of these boxes full of wood, you know, and coal. We used to haul coal in our back or in a little wagon from the tracks. Me and Paul. We're just like brothers, you know. We didn't mind it. But we didn't know any better. That was the time then.
Right.
Yeah. That poor Paul, his dad died when he was 7 years old. Just his mother, he had his mother. He had about 7 brothers, tall. They were all tall and strong. They were all fighters. They were all, one of them was a press fighter. Yeah, his name was Young Zamora. He was coming up pretty good, and then he started smoking, and then he went to bed smoking, and he burned himself.
Oh.
Yeah, he started smoking in the bed, and the bed caught on fire. He burned himself. 2 of Paul's brothers died like that.
Really?
Yeah, one guy he used to live in Denver, and he was cleaning some hats with some gasoline or some kind of chemical, and he was living in a trailer. And then all of a sudden, I don't know why, I don't know whether he had this light or something like that and explode, and the trailer got on fire. He couldn't get out. 2 of them.
It's a horrible way to die.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He used gasoline to clean them, I think, and it exploded.
It was a big family. I had 7 brothers and 3 sisters. Yeah. Nice
Yeah,
people.
They were
Nice
11
family.
altogether.
We'll lower the light a little bit here. It looks like we're getting a shadow.